2012 deposition from Kennedy's divorce, in which he argued that his earning power had diminished because, quote, I have cognitive problems clearly.
Oh yeah, I forgot about this part of the story. So he may have actually had mercury poisoning as well, you know, in addition to all of these. I mean, oof, it's a rough time. That's a lot of ailments, you know? It's like that Mr. Burns kind of like, oh, well, he can't die because he's got every disease. Like all of them, they're all trying to get through the door at once. Three Stooges syndrome, you know? Whoop, 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 whoop. All right, I want to talk about brainworms. We got a lot of brainworms topics. It's worm coverage time. I need an intro. You know, do you remember Tittygate? Stellar Blade, Goongate, it just like disappeared? Did the Gooners just like stop caring, or did they succeed? Did they get what they want? Did Stellar Blade this entire week has been consumed with much more interesting news than all the weirdos. It's funny that I made an intro for that because I thought they were going to just keep on going and gooning until the end of time, and we can't even use this intro. It's a good ass intro, you know? But now they're all just like, yeah, no, I'm good. Did you get it back? Did they take nothing from you? Is the war over? I don't know. I stopped caring. Now we're on to worms. Worms. What a wild time with those worms. Hold on. Let me open up the other worms. There's a lot of worm coverage, all right? It's like, what a time to be alive. RFK Jr.'s campaign says the worm that ate part of his brain will not affect his ability to serve as president. Now, I saw a lot of people, and myself included, think the same thing. Then what's the fucking point? You know, I'm voting for worm. It's worm or nothing. I don't want to have to like settle. You know, I don't want some brain wormless president who may not have worms influencing his decision making. So let's learn a little bit about the worms.
Let's kick things off with the huge trial that threatens to destroy a politician's career. Not Trump's trial. He'll get off scot-free. No. I'm talking about public opinion versus political story that could be crazy enough to push that out of the news cycle.
In a new report, Robert Kennedy opens up about health issues from a, quote, worm that got into my brain and ate a portion of it.
Thank you. You know, there's been a couple moments this week where, you know, I just like, wow, as bad and as wild and terrible as things are getting, especially like right now, the Rafah offensive is happening. Raise noise about it, talk about it. Everyone should know about it. It's fucking horrifying. Do not let it happen. While that's happening and you're just like so like shocked and in horror and aghast, something like this comes along, and then all of a sudden it's like, yes, well, I don't want to distract you from the horrifying realities of reality, but also we got to talk about brainworms. Yeah, literal brainworms. A literal brainworm. And you're like, oh, does this explain it? Not forgive it, by the way, I'm sorry, but like all the damage that he's been doing by spreading the whole like microplastics in the water cause trans people, Ashkenazi Jews were spared by the COVID virus because it was bioengineered by racist Chinese folk. HIV doesn't cause AIDS. I'm going to put that in a book, actually. Let's sell a book that's all about how HIV doesn't cause horrifying, like monster. Yeah, like he has so much to undo. But I don't know if we should blame all of it on the brainworm. Maybe he'd be twice as evil. I posit this. Maybe RFK Jr. would be twice as fucked up and say twice as many horrifying things had it not been for the brainworm. Maybe the brainworm was trying to save us all. Maybe the brainworm was eating the evil away but hadn't finished the job. Maybe we should return the brainworm to his brain in order to finish and consume all of the evil that's inside him. That, I mean, again, I'm not entirely sure about which direction we should go in here, but that's kind of what I'm vibing with.
And then died.
What?
Fake news. I think the worm's still around. And if the worm is not around, then there are more worms. There are many worms to go around.
I don't know what's worse, that RFK Jr. had a worm that was eating his brain, or that his brain is so poisoned it killed the worm. It's so wild that we've all...
Yeah, I mean, like, how long do they live in tequila? I wonder, it's got to be a metric, you know, kind of like Liz Truss and the lettuce, RFK Jr. and the worm versus tequila death versus his own brain juice. Like, what kills a worm faster, tequila or RFK Jr.'s brain juice? I think I need to know. I need science to be able to figure this out for me, okay?
I've been joking about how RFK Jr. must have brain worms, and then he actually
It's a grub in the mezcal. Oh, it's a grub in the mezcal. Wait, does the grub grow a little bit bigger? I've had one before. They don't seem like grubs. They seem larger. Oh, well, maybe it was the mezcal talking then. Forget the candidates. Can we just vote for brainworm? I am for worm. Obviously, this is a pro worm stream, and we're definitely going. I mean, we just need a what is it? A vice president if we're going with Team Worm.
has brain worms. It's like if the weird kid in class came back from the doctor with a note saying, actually, Kyle does have stage 2 turd face. Please let him get his affairs in order. Now, the Kennedy campaign is dismissing the notion that the dead worm in their candidate's brain could cause any cognitive problems. But the story actually came out because the New York Times found a
Yeah, but see, I disagree. I think the opposite. I think, if anything, the brainworm was helping. You know, now that the brainworm has died, it's when he went on this trajectory where all of a sudden he's like, you know what, I feel I'm my new passion in life. And they're like, oh, what is it? You've done so much to help environmental justice. I have, right? Yeah, really a hero. I'll be remembered for that. Can we look into vaccines? Yeah, maybe they cause autism. And how about this whole HIV and AIDS thing? I don't think they're related in any way, shape, or form. What? Sir, what's happening? No, don't do this. Bring him the worm.
2012 deposition from Kennedy's divorce, in which he argued that his earning power had diminished because, quote, I have cognitive problems clearly.
Oh yeah, I forgot about this part of the story. So he may have actually had mercury poisoning as well, you know, in addition to all of these. I mean, oof, it's a rough time. That's a lot of ailments, you know? It's like that Mr. Burns kind of like, oh, well, he can't die because he's got every disease. Like all of them, they're all trying to get through the door at once. Three Stooges syndrome, you know, whoop, 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 whoop. That whole thing, that might be what was happening to RFK Jr. Everything was in perfect balance, you know, as all things should be.
I guess his argument now is, no, the worm didn't eat the president part of my brain. Just the part that has to give my ex-wife money.
Oh, Twitter did that joke so much better. I don't know who the writers are for The Daily Show, but I feel like, you know, y'all were either trying to take some of Twitter's jokes, because I saw that joke done like 20 different ways on Twitter, but a lot better than that.
And as if this story couldn't get any weirder, it turns out that Kennedy discovered the worm because he was getting tested for brain fog and memory loss. But doctors said it probably wasn't the worm that was causing the brain fog. It was more likely that he had severe mercury poisoning.
He has everything. Every possible disease. You know what? This is great because this will change absolutely nothing. This is not going to move the needle in any direction. His fans, you know, the Woody Harrelsons and the Kevin Spaceys, they're really, really into his particular brand of oh boy. And so they've already bought, you know, like they're riding it. They're on the ride. They don't care. If anything, this improves him in their eyes. Well, yes, the man did not listen to the worm. He rides the great space worm. You've all seen Dune. It's amazing. Come on. It's still so bizarre that Kristi Noem wrote that book and thought that was a win. And it didn't even fully backfire. It backfired a little bit. You got Cat Turd, who was just like, no one kills their own dog but me, you know, getting really mad about it. But that's just like, it's such a grotesquely strange thing to want to put into a book, to be like, yeah, so I grew up on a farm. I shot a puppy. And I was like, oh, okay, weird flex. Was it traumatizing? Was it horrifying? No, it was kind of cool, actually. And then I shot a bunch of other animals. And then I was like, you know what these are usually like signs of, like precursors for, like, you know, you should watch out if people actually do this kind of stuff or enjoy it. Like, and then you got the Matt Walsh's, who, like, also his wife, Matt Walsh's wife, has said multiple times that he like kills the pets at home, like his, like, not, I don't know if it's like as cruel, obviously, as Kristi Noem, but like as it's been rumored. All right, so that's not the only worm story in our worm coverage today. There's a lot of worms. Apparently, there's more worm. Cuomo, hypocrite, taking the worm paste after calling out Rogan for the worm paste. I gotta say worm paste. because this might go up on the YouTubes later, and we all know what happens if you say the actual word. But you know who we're talking about, Jimmy Dore, the Jimmy Dore of it all. For humans.
Chris Cuomo is praising Joe Rogan and blasting his former network over its COVID coverage. In the podcast with Patrick Bet-David, the former CNN anchor and brother of former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo shared that he's now taking the same drug he used to make fun of. That's right. Let's watch.
I'll tell you something else that's going to get.
Kristi Noem has already doubled down. She said she wanted to shoot. I saw Biden's dog. Yeah, the one that bites security guards. The dog does always like ACAB, F12, fuck the police. That doggo.
You a lot of hits. I am taking a what do they call it? Like a regular dose, you know, whatever. They're trying to build up of ivermectin. Ivermectin
for humans. For humans.
It was a boogeyman early on in COVID.
You couldn't talk about it.
That was.
It wasn't a boogeyman in the way you think, right? And I know they're going to do this whole, like, Joe Rogan was right, actually. I can't believe it. So Joe Rogan was taking ivermectin for humans because he has access to that. Because, you know, rich, famous celebrity, he can get those Hollywood-style doctors, right? Even if you don't live in Hollywood, but you can get those style of doctors, the ones who are like, I can prescribe anything you want. What do you want to feel? Happy, sad, horny, less horny? Whatever you need, I'll give it to you. I'll get it for you. And he's like, yeah, so I've heard there's this rumor, and a lot of people are talking about it. I've seen Brett Weinstein speaking about it. I've seen Jordan Peterson talk about it. They both have the word doctor before their names, so I'm thinking maybe this whole ivermectin thing could help me out, you know, if I'm going to get COVID or prevent me from getting COVID or stuff like that. And like any doctor would tell them, oh, as of this moment in time, there's absolutely no direct medical evidence that ivermectin can prevent or cure the symptoms that come from COVID or at all. Right, that just there's no evidence for that. There are some, you know, tests that show that, like in vitro, there have been examples of it destroying COVID cells, but that's very, very different than you taking ivermectin, which is basically to remove worms and parasites from your body, and it's really good at that. If you had worms or parasites, it would get rid of them pretty good. Yeah, eye worms, yeah, it'll help you out. It's great for that kind of stuff. The problem here is that if all of you start going off about this and people say believe you without there being, again, any conclusive medical like science to back this whole thing up, they might go seek it out. And when it turns out that not everyone has access to it, because doctors might, if they have access to doctors, say, hey, by the way, I can't prescribe that to you because you don't have worms, right? This isn't going to fix your COVID, so I can't help you there. But if people want it, they might seek out the only way they can get it, which is to get it from pet stores. From veterinarians to get, yeah. So they might start eating the stuff for horses because it is also available in the horse paste form, hence the memes. So that's why people on one end, and I guess the news and CNN and the media just couldn't separate these two things or understand the difference between them. But there were real people who were calling into poison control because they were eating ivermectin for horses. Because again, the everyday person doesn't have access to the millions of dollars that Joe Rogan does. He doesn't. So it's still very irresponsible of Joe Rogan to be talking about this without it being an actual scientifically based cure or prevention mechanism for COVID. That's fucked. That's dangerous. He shouldn't do that. Neither should Jimmy Dore. Neither should anyone who is promoting this ivermectin fucking weird ass train. And it's still happening. You know, because there are people who are going to listen to this and watch this and are going to be like, well, I can't get the ivermectin for people, but I'm getting really sick, so I might take that, you know, ivermectin for horses.
Was wrong.
Flavored.
We were given bad information about ivermectin. The real question is why? Everyone's going to say Joe Rogan.
There's no conspiracy, though, right? Like CNN was factually incorrect when they said that Joe Rogan was taking ivermectin paste for horses. Yes, because he wasn't. He was taking ivermectin for humans prescribed by a doctor. But that doesn't mean it cured his COVID or helped his COVID symptoms. And if you look at the meta-studies of ivermectin and its efficacy towards preventing or treating COVID, it's pretty clear at this point. We now know conclusively, no, it does not prevent or treat COVID. There was a suspicion it might. We found out it doesn't. That's the end of the conspiracy with ivermectin. The fact that people are still trying to push this weird ass ivermectin train and being like, oh, can't talk about this one, but yeah, you know, that horse paste, it hits.
Rogan was right. No, Joe Rogan was saying, yeah, he was right.
Can't you all just do ketamine like normal rich people? Like, what the fuck? Why you gotta fuck with the horse paste and get other people thinking that this is some kind of miracle cure?
Right. But that's not what matters. What matters is the entire clinical community knew that ivermectin couldn't hurt you. They knew it, Patrick. I know they knew it. How do I know? Because now I'm doing nothing but talking to these clinicians who at the time were overwhelmed by COVID and they weren't saying anything.
As a reminder, this is the way Chris Cuomo talked about ivermectin in 2020, as ex-influencer Maze Moore pointed out.
Oh my God.
People who are injecting drugs for animals and horse.
And people telling them to. Oh my God. What person? You know, you talk about cancel culture and who to shame. Ivermectin, a dewormer, really?
They are shaming themselves. No one has to shame them. They're shaming themselves.
It's kind of fucked up because this is showing me right here that Chris Cuomo, like once you're disgraced or let go from a network and then all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm going to find my way in alternative media. I'm also going to, I guess, change my beliefs along the way. Because like, I know he knows better. Like he's sitting there on the PBD podcast and then he's being like, they lied to you. CNN lied to you. Like not me personally, even though, yeah, that's pretty much me, but everyone lied to you. They thought that you were pushing the horse pace, but it's actually, did you know there's an ivermectin for humans? And like, yes, you know it too. Everyone knows it, of course. Not everyone has access to it is the difference. And there's a lot of people, yes, who are scared, frightened, and when there's a novel virus going around and they don't have access to proper healthcare, they might turn to, well, what's Joe Rogan taking? Apparently ivermectin. That's stuff that's for horses? No, he's taking but I can get the horse one. You could, but it might make you very sick. Yeah.
No, they need to be shamed. They need to be called out and shamed, brother.
Now, Joe Rogan reacted to Cuomo's shift in positions on his podcast. Let's take a listen.
Chris Cuomo just came out and said he's got a vaccine injury. That guy was pushing that on TV forever.
Vaccine injury. Same with Jimmy Dore. Yeah, weird. It kind of seems like there's kind of I don't know, like a pathway, one might say, where you can be like on one end, yeah, no, I'm one of the people who actually believe the lies. I believe the lies. I was really scared. I was sick, and my doctor, he told me, you should be taking, that vaccine. It could save lives. And then I was like, oh, and like a fool, I did it. I know. And now I'm talking about it on all these podcasts and shows, and I'm just touring on this, and I got this book coming out, the Great Lie. It's going to be about this big lie that we all got sold, and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be real cool. Yeah.
And he said he got it with his first dose, and then he got it again with his second dose.
Rogan goes on to criticize the New York Times for their recent reporting on COVID vaccine-related injuries.
This is in New York Times. Thousands believe COVID vaccines harm them. Is anyone listening? All vaccines have it.
Again, the vaccine, and if we're going to have to keep on going in circles on this entire ordeal, at this point, since billions of doses have been administered, it's pretty demonstrable both through the rates of hospitalization. If you look at the rates of people who are both getting sick, getting hospitalized, and dying between the vaccinated to unvaccinated, that it saves lives, that it is beneficial, that its overall net benefit to society is immense. It's actually the reason why, and the anti-vaxxers might hate this, but like a lot of things went back to normal because no, we didn't cure COVID. We didn't solve that problem. It's become an endemic, and that's just the way it's going to have to be. And a large part of that has to do, and the reopening of society, the hospital system not shutting down for mass death, is the vaccination, the mass vaccination. It is resulting in less people getting sick and dying from COVID and going to the hospital because of respiratory problems and needing to have respirators and all that kind of stuff. And as a result, life kind of went back to, well, yes, it's like it was before, but now in the winter you have to get 2 shots. You got to get the flu shot and you got to get the COVID shot. And then, in the future, it could be, and you got to get the bird flu shot. Because that just seems to be the way things go, right? Like people just let a problem get to a certain point. Half the population is like, the vaccine is trying to turn your brain into goo. And like, if there are millions and millions of Americans who have taken the vaccine, who have taken 2 vaccines, and who are vaccinated completely, then there is, yes, as was told to everybody, going to be a percentage of them that have negative reactions to a vaccine. A large medicine that is given to a massive population, there is going to be, of those millions and millions, we're talking hundreds of millions of people, thousands of people who have complications. Yes, so some of them may die. That was always a risk that was told and explained, and the numbers are bearing out as they were also predicted. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, hey, by the way, here's the percentage of people we believe, if they're vaccinated, will no longer die. Here's the percentage will no longer be hospitalized. Here's the percentage will no longer have symptoms of any severity. Here's the percentage. And a lot of that lined up and squared up. So it's kind of like, the science was sound. You can get mad at the corporations, then fucking, whoa, I'm all about it. Yes, let's go after Pfizer. Let's go after all these massive companies that are profiting off human health in a very insidious way, when it's actually a lot of socialized spending by American taxpayers who were putting together the funding necessary for the government to be able to grant the development of those vaccines in the first place. Let's talk about that. For sure, fuck them. Yeah, I'm on board. Fuck Big Pharma. Yeah. But not lie to people that the vaccine is evil incantations and magic and demon spirits going into your bloodstream to turn you gay. None of, like, what? But of course, that sells. That one's creepier. You remember seeing the needles, you know, and then they went into your arm, they went inside you, and then that liquid it's inside your, it lives inside all of us. I can feel it inside me. It's causing me to do this entire segment. It's creepy. I get why it sells.
At least occasional side effects, but people who say they were injured by COVID vaccines.
I know somebody personally turned anti-vax after a sudden eye event that caused permanent damage to one eye, and the doctors were puzzled in how it happened, so they blamed the vaccine for the eye injury. That sucks.
Believe their cases have been ignored. Well, they have. They have been ignored. I have friends that have been ignored.
Now, many on the right were furious with
Philip Schwartz, thank you for the $2 dono. Keep politics out of our politics. I agree. I could not agree more.
Cuomo's admitted reversal. Author and ex-influencer John Lefevre said, quote,
John Lefevre.
It wasn't that Chris Cuomo was lied to about ivermectin or that Joe Rogan was lucky, as he now claims. Chris Cuomo was wrong. He was lazy. He didn't do his job. He was a useful idiot, repeating propaganda talking points.
Again, this is like, it's way less of a story than you think it is. I mean, I feel like I'm getting brainworms just by talking about this, because this has a lot more to do with the whole kind of like, hey, by the way, did you know that, yeah, so they were confusing the horse paste with the human product. But in both cases, neither will help you with the COVID. That part is still true. And telling people that it can is also very, very fucking irresponsible. And if they end up taking ivermectin for animals, they can get very sick. All of those things are true, right? Like, still, fuck you if you are pushing this idea. And now if you're trying to transform the whole thing into an even bigger conspiracy about, like, yeah, why wouldn't they let you talk about ivermectin? Did you know that ivermectin, actually, you can't, like, copyright it? You can't, like anyone can make it, right? The copyright's expired, so it can be produced by any corporation. So, like, these big pharmaceutical companies, they don't have a monopoly on it. And you're like, there's a very, very small amount of monstrously huge pharmaceutical companies that have the mechanism to mass produce this product and sell it. So while any company in theory could start selling it, there's only about 3 that manufacture it on an industrial scale and do. And yes, they stand to profit handsomely from all of you useful idiots spreading this shit all the time. Every day just being like, well, ivermectin, it's the secret miracle cure. No one will let you know. Yeah, if you have worms in your brain or in your eyes, then yes, yeah, it's a huge thing, massive. Then yes, it'll help you. And, you know, Nobel Prize winning award, help you kind of thing.
Asking 0 questions and shaming anyone who did. Meanwhile, other CNN watchers are mad at Cuomo for different reasons. For example, one ex-user exchanged tweets with Cuomo writing, wow, just wow, it's always something with you. So glad CNN fired you. I watched you suffer with COVID and you have long COVID. Now all of a sudden, now you have issues related to the vaccine. Come on, man. Remember this, Chris Cuomo got COVID early on and shared the news of his illness on TV at CNN.
The virus wants us to lay down. The virus wants us to take it. Other than the blessed few.
It's so wild how much he fell from grace. Because this was like, the eyes of the nation were watching him at this time when he went into his basement, you know? This was like fucking, this was Tom Hanks' Castaway tier, where everyone's like, oh my God, he's got COVID. We get to see a person with COVID live on television. He's going to do this broadcast from his basement where he's socially isolating from the rest of his family. And he'd show up every now and then and be like, yeah, it's hard. And you're like, wow, harrowing. This is the face of COVID, you know?
Howdy everybody. I just wanted to let you know that for the cost of a cup of coffee, you can unlock bonus uncensored episodes of Mind Explosions by going to patreon.com/theserfs. Our videos couldn't exist without your support, and all our content is released early to our Patreon subscribers, as well as a ton of extra content you can't get anywhere else. Please like, subscribe, and thumbs up this channel, and if you're feeling extra perky, share share it anywhere you think people would like to see or learn from our videos. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We first want to give a shout out to everyone who makes this show possible. This program is produced thanks to the generous support of our Patreon supporters: Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbar Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimondi, Omni, Peanut Butter Blondie, Political Poppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Richard Bomey, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Ruby, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demmel, Travis McClinton, and Words Greenwood, as well as every other person you see on the screen right now. This show would not be possible without them. And if you want to join these wonderful people who make this entire program possible, simply go to patreon.com/the Serfs and you can unlock uncensored and bonus episodes and, help us exist.